Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Tara, and we are going to talk about the finale of the new Twilight Zone Season 1, Episode 10. It's called Blurryman. So, full
It's over.
spoilers. Full spoilers for it. It is over. Now I did put full cards on the table here, because
Mm.
Tara watched this before I did, and she mentioned that she'd watched it. And I said, oh, how is it? And she indicated that she was somewhat positive. Would you agree with that description of your attitude when I asked?
Yes.
Right.
I don't want to, put all my cards on the table, as you say,
Mm-hmm.
before we talk about it.
Yes. Yes. Well, I mean, I guess I've already kind of answered by saying that you said that to me, but I mean, do you think this one broke the streak?
Well, I have not been as negative as you about the show.
I'm aware. Yes.
So I think it would be more appropriate to ask you if it broke the streak.
Okay, so no, I think I'm trying to think of
Oh,
the appropriate metaphor to what's the opposite of breaking the streak, but in a more climactic way, like when it gets worse, where the streak gets worse. Does the streak go off the edge of the building and just rain down on people, innocent children who are now covered in the shit that was streaking across the rooftop up until now? Like, how do I define this? I don't know. Like, there's nice ideas in this episode. We'll talk about what the premises. We'll talk about what I think is an interesting idea here or there. But this
okay.
episode, for the most part, or at least the ending, was laughably bad.
All right. Well, I'm just going to let you know that I actually really like this episode.
Oh goody.
We are very much on opposite ends here.
You know what? We've reviewed several episodes of this. We've been doing the classic Twilight Zone. We've been doing movies in the Ace, or science fiction movie podcast.
Uh-huh.
And you're relatively new at this still. It's only been a couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
I've been waiting for the time that came, because we're usually pretty agreeable, right? Okay, one of us might feel stronger than the other when we're, whatever direction we're going in. But typically,
Sure.
if I think something's terrible, you'll think, yeah, it's pretty bad. Or if I think something is only okay, you think it's really good. But we're usually on the same side of the coin, as it
Yeah.
were. I've been waiting for the showdown.
I'm not like passionate about this though, but I do think this is I don't know. I think this one's pretty good.
I'll get my positives.
Okay.
Okay, my positives. The premise, right? So the episode starts, and Seth Rogen's here, and like I was really worried for a couple of seconds because this opening scene was terrible. But although
Yeah, it's not
bizarrely,
good.
it's intentionally terrible. More on that in a minute. So he's talking about he's a novelist or a screenwriter, he's a writer, and he's typing away. He's getting angry at himself. He's like, I didn't put this idea in, and he's upset. And then his friend comes over, and they look out the window. He's finally got the good idea or whatever, and it's like an apocalypse has happened outside. And I went, "What's that? This is going off the rails. What's this? What's going on? What's this about? What's going on?" And then the Jordan Peele narration starts. He starts, talking nonsense like he does in his narration, and then he just sort of like breaks character and goes, "That's not really working," and they yell cut, and I'm like, "Oh, we're doing it. We're
Yeah,
doing
they've
it.
gone full meta.
We're going full net. We're breaking the fourth wall with this one." And the actual premise of the episode is that ZZ Beats is the main character. Seth Rogen's basically that. You see him a couple of times more, but it's a cameo. He's got a cameo. It's almost just to
Yeah.
trick you into thinking that this is what the episode's about. ZZ Beats is the main character, and she is the writer of the episode of this episode of the Twilight Zone. Jordan Peele plays himself. He's talking out a character, although it's obviously still scripted. But that's the neat thing about it. Okay, as an idea, this is great. I like this idea. And then the episode is largely
Yeah.
about Zazie Beetz, who is obsessed with storytelling in the Twilight Zone and kind of what that means to her character. And then and there's this creepy, blurry man who starts like following her around, and we're seeing him in the back of episodes. And then eventually at the end of the episode, we realize who the blurry man is, and we'll talk about the ending in a little bit. So my first big problem with this, and I realize that I'm not really giving time, but I want to see what your counterpoint to this is.
Okay.
My first big problem with this is that, and I was laughing. I was genuinely laughing at some of this, although maybe not in the way that they were intending, because Jordan Peele sits down and says, no, this narration is not very good. That doesn't really mean anything. And Azizi Beats, the writer, who's playing the writer, starts saying, well, no, it means this and it means that. And she's kind of frustrated. She's like, no, it's not really that good. It doesn't really say anything about this art versus, social responsibility.
Entertainment.
Art, yeah. And I sat there and I just started laughing. And I was like, the narration's been terrible in every single episode. And it feels weird to me that, like, if you want to argue that it was intentionally kind of shit the whole season just so this like played better, like, I don't think it is. I think that's weird, even though it'd be the greatest con job in the history. Like see if this final episode was like, no, the rest of the episodes were bad, I'd be like, this is like the weirdest but kind of coolest like twist ever that they think all the episodes are bad or something. But everything he was saying about the writing, I'm like, yeah, I've been thinking about this about every episode. You're pointing it out.
Yeah. I mean, even the first lines are from Seth Rogen, and he's just like, no, it's shit. It's garbage.
I know.
The writing is bad. I'm a horrible writer. I'm like, oh, they're just actually telling us what's been true about the show for most of it.
And I think,
and
I think that's the biggest thing that's kind of wrong. Just up until we get to the ending, we talk about like just the episode's themes and whether or not they work or whatever. Is that I think that the setup of this episode I would actually love if I'd been enjoying this show and they were doing something. Whereas here it feels like, well, you've not really been successful in doing a Twilight Zone show. It's been terrible. And now you're doing this meta thing that, I mean, could potentially end up being the best thing about it. And maybe you might think that's true, given your positivity.
Well, at first I was not. Like, I generally don't love it when shows or movies get real meta. I think it's like it's kind of a cheap trick in my mind when I see it, and I generally I don't like it, and especially when it's about the writers. I can't help but like visualizing all the writers like patting themselves on the back about how good of a job they're doing. And especially for this show, like, that's just not deserved, unfortunately. But
rating's been bad.
I did think it kind of worked as a Twilight Zone episode by the end of it. You still get two versions of the narration. You get the one from Jordan Peele when he's doing the show, and then you get the second one where he thinks he's doing a joke, but he still, even though he breaks the narration and breaks the character of the narrator, he still ends up providing a proper narration for the show by doing so. I think it kind of works.
There's a joke scene almost where she's written new narration and they've put it on cue cards because it's a last minute rewrite so he can read them. And he reads the cue cards and it becomes this meta thing about the writer, and like, she doesn't know who wrote this. Everyone's just, and he finishes it as a joke. He's like, oh, okay, that good prank, and he just kind of finishes it. And Seth Rogen's like, oh, that sounds like a much better episode than what we're shooting. Like, I mean, yeah, it sounds better than most of the episodes that they've had this season. So here's this thematically, I like what the episode's trying to do, and that's been true for some of the episodes in the season, to be fair. But so what it's doing as the train goes by, is that it's. So this character of Zazie Beetz, her name is Sophie, I want to say.
Yeah.
That sounds right. She, grew up caring about Twilight Zone, and the story's about like being obsessed with art or being obsessed with the writing and not being. I actually thought, because it's funny, like I even thought this. There's like a flashback at one point of her watching, Time Enough at Last, the episode which one of the most famous episodes. We've already reviewed it because it was early in season 1, and she's watching that, and I thought, oh, this is kind of neat, because I actually think thematically what it's trying to do ties into that. Because we loved that episode, but one of the things that we maybe like thought was unclear was kind of like what sort of message it was trying to say, and maybe this was trying to like take that episode, reinvent it, and say, no, she's obsessed with the art form and or the work and doesn't like have a life outside of it.
Right, much like the character in that episode is obsessed with books and ignores the real life around him.
Yeah, the reason why it doesn't necessarily, that is the one element that maybe doesn't work as well in that episode, even though I'm not dissing that episode, I love that episode. Is that his wife is so mean to him that I don't like think he's I'm like, yeah, I don't blame him. Go read a book somewhere. She's awful.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but we reviewed that episode and we both kind of agreed that that episode was about the metaphor, so it didn't matter so much that the
Mm.
characters were kind of cartoonish.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's doing that thing, and this person who feels that way was inspired by Twilight Zone is now writing Twilight Zone, and now finds herself kind of in a Twilight Zone episode. And the
Mhm.
concept behind the ending, I don't necessarily mind, and who the Shadow Man ends up being. My problem with the bulk middle of this episode is we've got the same kind of like over the top direction we've had throughout the show, so I don't think the suspense works that well. Two, given who the Shadow Man turns out to be, why is he doing like weird supernatural movie moments where he's like making
Where he's like
books,
throwing
yeah,
books and
and
breaking
bottles of
bottles and stuff.
wine and stuff like that?
Yeah, I sort of agree with that, but I like the idea of her being afraid of the shadow of Rod Sterling, being a writer on the show, and is just intimidated by the fact that she has to follow up from a man who could not be replicated.
I love that I was dodging saying what it was. I was building up to you just threw it out there.
Sorry.
Yeah, the Shadow Man's Rod Serling, and I don't like hate that in theory. I actually think I like the idea of like seeing him at the end, and the idea that she's drawn into the Twilight Zone, and even his final point is like, no, you want both. You don't want to sacrifice one for the other. Both are important.
Yeah.
Here, the problem with the ending is that they've got a decent impersonator doing the voice. The CGI face. We have to talk about the CGI face.
See, I was okay with the CGI face, but I thought the voice is what took me out of it. And I didn't know if it was someone who was impersonating the voice or they actually were able to recreate it from clips of
No, I
the
thought
old show.
it was an impersonator. There was a credit for it, I'm sure.
There was a credit for
Yeah.
it. Okay.
Um, the voice isn't perfect. For me though, like the movement of his mouth, like just
We're not there yet.
it just
It's
made
true.
it feel goofy.
Like we weren't
Yeah.
there with Peter Cushing in Rogue One either.
Oh, we wrote,
Like
and that was the better. Comparing this to that was better, but it still
had
wasn't.
the Disney money. Yeah.
Yeah, they had. I mean,
But
whereas
I mean, I did smile. Like I saw him when the blurry man like becomes clear and it's Rod Sterling standing there. I couldn't help but smile.
I
Like
think
to see him in the show.
no, I liked what they did, and because I liked earlier on that there's like a sticker on the back of her laptop of Rod Serling, just so everyone knows what he looks like, just in case you didn't know what he was.
Yeah.
I like the concept to a point of it, right? I think the mistake was having him speak while he was there. I think when you can recreate his face statically, just have him stand there and have her walk towards him, and then once they're walking away with their backs to us, then have his narration come in. Right? There's a neat idea of having Rod Serling technically, narrate the ending of the final episode of the season. I understand the desire to try and do that. I like the idea that someone who grew up in Twilight Zone is now obsessed with like the stories and the meanings and the sci-fi.
Yeah.
And because that was the other thing that bugged me about the conversation she has with Jordan Peele at the start is like she's arguing that, oh no, we don't just want what was the phrase they used?
Campfire stories.
Campfire stories. Yeah, that was it. There has to
Yeah.
be a meaning, and that was a really like annoying conversation to me. Just in the sense, I'm like, this episode it's been so back and forth of either like hitting the message so hard and on the nose that it's unbearable, or like making it so messy that you can't understand what it's trying to say. So
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like
yeah,
when you're watching the episode, I think it stands alone. But when you look at it as an entire season, it's hard not to think, well, yeah, but you kind of failed at that. Like,
yeah,
unfortunately, what you wanted to deliver, the execution was wrong. And unfortunately, a lot of it had to do with the writing. So when you have this meta story about a Twilight Zone writer, like patting herself on the back for successfully doing it, and Rod Sterling approving of it, it's kind of like, no. But like I said, as a standalone, the message that they're trying to do, I think it does work. And I know the horror element of it was a little bit difficult to accept when you see who it is at the end, but I don't know. I still kind of like it.
I think it's both that it doesn't make sense given that it's Serling himself who's the blurry man, even though I like it's a bit of a stunt move, but I kind of appreciate the ballsiness of it. I think the other problem is I just don't think the horror stuff actually works that well, and it's not the interesting part. Like I get that, like because they have this thing where she's chased through like multiple sets, and it's like sets from previous episodes. Like we get the
Uh-huh.
bar from episode one, we get the supermarket from the immigration one. Uh, we even see like some of the footage being edited. We see Chris O'Dowd on the editor's monitor, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of like gimmicky, but like sure, like this is kind
Mhm.
of fun. Um, I think the problem is that the interesting part of this story, like she doesn't have to be chased like because there's a whole chase sequence where it's like she's running like it's a ghost or like a slasher killer like chasing her, right, and she's like going through the sets and she's ducking and diving, she's trying to hide, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this could all be cut. Like just have this shadow be there in the room, have her be scared of it, and like
I think it's okay for her to run away from it and to be afraid of it
mm,
because it's she's afraid of the unknown. And when we realize that it's, the shadow of Rod Sterling, the person that she probably is afraid of, because now she's in that role of Rod Sterling of writing. And I think that's okay for her to run away from it and then eventually face it.
which
I don't think the whole Rod Sterling's ghost attacking her is necessary. I think that could be cut out.
yeah, I
Because
absolutely
you
do.
can still be scary.
But
You can still run away from a ghost and be scared.
to give it credit, I think my problem is that I don't want it to be treated like a ghost ever. I think that's my main thing here. Is I like the idea of it just being this like weird thing she can't explain that's hanging over her, as opposed to like no, it's a ghost chasing her kind of thing. But
Yeah.
to be fair to the episode, I will say that at least the opening scene with Seth Rogen's like writer character in the fake episode sets up the theme of like a writer being afraid of their own like skill or like the stress that
Mhm.
they're under. So it at least sets up that. I think my main
I think
problem,
this episode's pretty consistent with this theme throughout, which is not something we've seen in the other ones.
it's consistent. I do wish there was more to actually set it up properly though. I think it kind of rushes through. Like it's a shorter episode, it's like 38 minutes compared to some of them which have been a bit longer. And it's not so much that I think it needs to be longer because there's a bunch of stuff I'd cut out in the middle with the horror stuff.
Yeah, I was pretty comfortable with the time of it actually. And I thought the pacing was okay.
But I would swap it out because it's not so much the pacing that's the problem. It's the I don't think like when it gets to the point where it's making its statement at the end, where Serling gives this speech and she's realizing what she's been running from. I don't think
Mhm.
the one flashback was enough to really give it the weight that it needed. Like I feel like let me see her like there's this one thing where she's like blowing off her friend or whoever it is who's escaping her like on the phone and she's like not calling back and like actually give
Right.
me her missing like something important. Like it's one thing for having a friend saying, "Oh, you never call me" or whatever. Have her miss her friend's like birthday or someone's funeral or so, something like give it a tangible point where she's crossed the line. And
Well, I mean, we get that, and we get the scene when she's young and she's watching TV, and her dad is saying, "Your friends want to play with you; they're outside." And so it is kind of consistent with that. We see it twice anyway. We see that this is something she's done when she was a kid, and it's something she's doing now. She's sacrificing her life and her friendship in order to be in the Twilight Zone.
I, I
So
I don't think it's enough, I guess is what I'm saying. Like
I found it to be enough
I just like all the
because it was the same
episodes.
thing twice.
Yeah,
I don't think you need any more than that to have a pattern.
I guess my problem is that this perhaps my biggest problem with this show is that I think it's terrible at doing the character arcs. I think I understand what they're doing with this character. I understand what they're setting up. I don't necessarily feel like she learns anything or like I mean she does kind of right at the end and Sally mentions the cruel twist, like the final thing's the cruel twist, right? Um
Yeah, because we have the ending where she's able um, to write the right narration for the show, and then there's a twist ending. Oh, it's not. You think
yeah.
it's over, but it's not over.
Yeah. Which, by the way, if all the writers are going through this for every single episode script, no wonder the scripts have been so bad. I'll give them credit there. If this is an accurate representation of what it's like working on this show, maybe I can't blame them so much. I think for me the lesson of it just kind of rings a little bit hollow. I understand what they're doing, I really do, but I don't think
Mhm.
we get enough personal moments with her where she like she barely has time to react to the fact that someone's mad at her for missing things, or we barely get time for her to see the effects of you know what her life is because of this. Like, we have one friend who's mad at her, and I feel like either more of that stuff or more of like her being upset and struggling with balancing them, because the ultimate lesson at the end that Sterling says is that you can have both. You need both of them in your life. You need what you love in terms of your art, you need what and the people you love as well. You need both. And I don't think the episode actually does anything with her, because at the end it feels like, no, she's just walking into the Twilight Zone. Like
Well, that's what she wanted too. She told Jordan Peele that in the very beginning, that she's always been fascinated about what is the Twilight Zone. How do I get there? When do we eventually get there? And by the end, she does. That's like her journey. Rod Serling takes her into it.
Yeah.
And we don't really know what that means still. Like, I still don't really understand what the Twilight Zone is.
I'm going to correct you because the comments are going to do it. There's no T in his last name.
There's no what?
There's no T in his last name.
In Sterling?
And Serling. It's Rod Serling.
Sterling? Oh, why did I think it was Sterling all these years?
Because Sterling's a more common name. Well, yeah, it is, yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't going to do it, but
I've been wrong forever.
Yeah, but you said it like that was like the fifth time you said it, like, you know what? The comments are going to eat you alive. I'm just going to do it.
My bad. I swear I'm a fan.
Unless I'm worried I'm wrong now. Hold on. Hold on. Yeah, no T. Yes.
Okay. Rod Serling.
I think it just doesn't click. It doesn't click for me. There's a point towards the end of the episode where I get what it's doing, and Serling shows up, and it just feels a little bit hollow. It feels hollow because I don't feel like I've been on this journey where I'm like, whoa, that's what this story was about. It's like, because maybe they could, and also that thing we just talked about there, the idea that she wants to know what a Twilight Zone is. I'm like, don't ever like answer or quantify that. Don't you dare! Like, let it be this like vague thing that we don't understand.
Well, it still kind of is. We still don't really have an answer to what it is.
Yeah, but she gets an answer because she walks into it.
Yeah, but we don't have it, so isn't that all right still? It's still a mystery.
I think the fact that she actually can walk into it says that there's a tangible thing that's the Twilight Zone, and I think that takes away some of the idea, because the way I've always kind of interpreted what the Twilight Zone is, like, what is the Twilight Zone, right? Is it another dimension, or is it a series of dimensions? I've always kind of taken it as more of like an ethereal idea of like, people, it's our world, it's our Earth, it's our, ours, not always, because obviously sometimes it's in the future or we're on another planet or whatever, but it's like you basically find yourself in the Twilight. It's more of a state of mind than it is anything else.
Right.
Which I guess works.
It's almost like like an out of body experience where all of a sudden you're watching something take place and it feels like you're an alien in your own world. Like something is off.
Which does make sense still with the ending of this episode. The idea that, because honestly, I kind of read this episode as she's been into like some sort of catatonic state and she's just lost her mind and she's never coming back.
She could have, yeah.
Like that.
I mean, there's one point where she even tries to ask that question because her conscience starts talking to her, like, and the narrator of her own mind is going, and she's, saying if everything's all right, then why am I talking to myself right now?
Joe, what bugs me about that? Actually, that's a good point. I didn't like the self narration stuff.
Oh, I didn't mind it.
Yeah, that did bug me. Now you brought it up. Joe, I think hurts this more than anything. No, is I think this ending makes it wants to feel sweet. It wants to feel like this sweet ending where she's come to like some sort of understanding and she's like meeting her hero in a way that she's connected with his writing. Maybe like that's what it's saying. It's like, through her writing, she's in some way communicated to someone who's not here anymore because the writing connects them, right, or something like that. And I think it wants to be this sweet ending, and I think I want that version of the episode where the sweet ending works. I think the problem is that this episode's so obsessed with making it her horrifying and not really clearly defining how she's getting to this point, and that I'm almost joking about these darker outcomes, but no, she's in a catatonic state. She's went nuts and she's imagining this, or it's this, and I actually love the core idea of the sweet ending where she connects to this thing she grew up with, and like I think there's a great idea in here. I really do. I think there's a fantastic idea in here of honoring the original show and honoring Rod Serling and saying that you link up with him in a way that like no one else will, because you've. But the problem is that by saying the writer has connected with Rod Serling, is you're implying that they're in some level equal, or they've reached the quality and the understanding that Rod Serling had, which this
and you're
show
just not ready to accept that.
No, Rod Serling, this show in under no circumstances reached that quality. It's not even in the vicinity.
Okay, it is kind of like the writers giving themselves the Rod Serling's blessing in a way, but I did kind of think it was sweet. I don't know. And then like afterwards, when everything turned black and white, and she's walking through some of the old sets of the show, and you see the glasses on the library step.
Yeah, it's the library. Yeah.
And like, I don't know, man, it got me.
Like I like to go in black and white.
As far as the quality goes, like the quality of the whole season, unfortunately, has not been up to par. And this one, maybe because of that, I'm just like, because this one seems a lot better, that I'm putting it up higher.
Like I theoretically like the ending, although I do think it was a mistake having the CG face talk. Right, I think it should have waited. Kept just give us one good look at him and have him turn around, and that be it. Right, and then hear his voice after that. Right. But I think the problem is I think the episode before that is mostly still trash, and because of that, like it almost feels like I said it was ballsy, right? Because I think it is a bit of a stunt thing to do. Is like, oh, we're going to recreate Rod Serling digitally. We're going to have him end the episode. The first season finale. It's going to be this big moment, and I think that's a stunt, no matter what. And people will always fall on two sides of that argument. Is this something they should have done? Is it disrespected his memory, even if the show was good? But I think because the show is bad, and because most of the episode is still bad, instead of feeling like it's like I want to like it, but it feels kind of like a slap in the face, as opposed to the sweet sort of narrative that it wants to do. Because I did find myself, like, when it went black and white, I was like, oh, it's going black and white. It's like she's traveling into old episodes. There's an idea here. Like, maybe they should have played with that more, rather than have the stupid horror thing. Maybe earlier on have it go black and white, and have her actually go through a few classic episodes in black and white and be confused about where she is, and then end
maybe they'll do that consistent. We are getting to season 2. Maybe they'll do that for all the finales. Who knows?
Yeah, I feel once again I come down to this thing where there's like a couple of core really good ideas here, and then it's just writers who don't know how to put them together. And I feel that way about this episode, like I have done with the rest. And I know why you like. I think
this one seemed pretty clean to me. Like there were like a couple things that I didn't like, and a lot of it just has to do with the fact that this episode is, because it connects the entire season together with the Blurryman beat in every episode, that you kind of just see it as one whole.
And for the record, I don't think he technically was in every episode. It's just in this episode they claim that he's in every episode.
No, he is.
Yeah.
He is in them, because I remember seeing him in one of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In the episode with the immigration one with Jennifer Goodwin in it. I can't remember the name of it. But that episode when she's in the checkout line at the grocery store.
Oh, you do see him.
There's a guy in a suit who like bumps into her. And I remember thinking that he seemed out of place. And because he was wearing like a suit in a grocery store, and she's in the checkout line and he's going the opposite way. Like, why is he going through a checkout line like that?
Okay. If he's actually, because I never noticed him. So if
he's in all of them.
If he's actually there.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, if he's actually there, then fair play. They set this up all season, and I commend that for the idea. But
I think that's pretty cool.
I just
it also kind of ties into the fact that Jordan Peele, when she's saying that, Rod Serling was in every episode, and it kind of tied the whole thing together. And he goes, well, every episode until now. And like, oh, actually, he's still in them.
Because I replaced them, don't you know? No, I'm the Rod Serling.
Yeah, it was a little. You kind of interpret it as a bit of an ego thing. Yeah. Except now they still added him into each episode.
Although notably, like, they're kind of ignoring like the other two versions of Twilight Zone that happened. Like, I mean, unless Rod Serling was in the 80s
maybe
one.
I haven't seen them. So
I haven't seen them. Maybe Rod Serling isn't. I can't imagine he's in the 2000s one.
I'm sure
he was passed away by then.
Maybe, but maybe they used him in like the opening credits
Oh,
still or
yeah,
something.
maybe. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I love the idea of this being a love letter to Rod Serling. I really do. I think the core writing in this show, I don't think they know how to write scenes. I don't think they, and that sounds really harsh, but there's
I
just,
liked Zazie Beetz though. I thought she was really good. Like her performance really sold it for me.
I'm going to disagree a little bit here. See, when she was like running through the street set and she turned around and started screaming at him,
Uh-huh.
that took me out of it. I thought the screaming felt a bit, and I don't. It's not like this. Zazie Beetz I've liked in what I've seen her in. I think when she starts screaming at the Blurryman, it kind of. Actually, do you know what I
I don't know, because then she has that. She's at first she's threatening him, like, "All right, come at me," and then when he actually starts walking towards her, and she like turns and says, "I was just kidding." Like, I don't know. I kind of like that part.
I want to give credit though to the next time on from last week, which somehow like dodged spoiling that this was a meta episode. It just made it look like it
Yeah,
was Seth Rogen and Zazie Beetz, and there was a Blurryman going around.
yeah.
So just credit, because it did catch me off guard. It did genuinely was a surprise that it was that.
Mhm.
I think. And by the way, this episode was, and this bodes well, because I do think the direction is poor in this episode. This episode was directed by Simon Kinberg, who is directing X-Men Dark Phoenix, which is coming out next week, so look forward to that, folks.
Oh boy.
He also wrote the X-Men The Last Stand, which was the previous X-Men movie that also did the Dark Phoenix storyline.
Oh, really? The same one? Why
Same
would they
writer.
bring him back?
Isn't that a fantastic question?
That one is universally panned, and even Days of Future Past kind of retconned it, right?
And yeah, and it's worth mentioning that Simon Kinberg is one of the core like producers and developers on this show, which honestly I never realized, and now that I'm aware of that, I'm like, I'll be honest, it kind of adds up. But this feels like Simon. Not that he's directed all the episodes or even written. Like I don't know if he even wrote this one. Let me check. Let me click on the writer
But he
credits.
seems very involved. Okay.
But he seems very involved. They didn't rate this episode specifically. But he's one of the developers of the show. Then again, so is Jordan Peele. But Kinberg actually directed this episode, so he is doing things. He's still he's creatively there.
Did you like that Jordan Peele played himself in this and not their narrator?
Yeah, that was kind of cool. It was nice to see him. I almost thought at one point she was like she was calling him out on his ego or whatever, and I almost, because he said something like, "Oh, you've not been the same." And I almost thought she was going to say, "You've not been the same since Get Out," and I thought that was going to be a line.
Oh yeah, the actress that was in Get Out. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I assumed that they were talking about anyway.
Yeah. But you know,
I kind of liked it, and I don't mind that he broke the fourth wall, because I mean Rod Serling kind of does too. At the end of every episode that we watch, he talks about the actors who are going to be in the next episode. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't call that breaking the fourth wall. I would just say that he literally presents the show to us as the audience, like as just a presenter. Like he's not like in character. He's just doing himself. Whereas this was more specifically Jordan Peele's doing a part, and then he turns out to Jordan Peele.
Right.
Because when you're watching the rest of the episodes in this show, at no point do you think Jordan Peele's supposed to be himself here. He's not saying this as if he's Jordan Peele.
Yeah, I mean, but they call him that the whole rest of the episode.
Well, in this, because it turns into real life, quote unquote.
Okay. Yeah.
They're walking around calling him JP.
I know.
I was like, Jurassic Park? What? What's happening?
That's what I thought of too. Oh, we're such nerds.
Life finds a way. Yeah, there was an odd moment actually where he disappears for a little bit, and it's like he's missing, and she goes looking for him, which leads to some of the horror stuff. But then he's just kind of back. Then it's like fine.
Yeah.
That was a weird thing. And yeah, okay. The friend on the phone says, "Yeah, it's 2 a.m. He's probably just went home." It's like, well, yeah, that makes sense, but it's still a weird plot beat.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess it kind of made me think that maybe he is playing the part of the narrator for her episode of the Twilight Zone again.
Okay.
Like he's gone back into that role, because one of the last things he tells her is that you should really be worried that you're apparently in the episode of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, it's still really bad. Simon Kinberg directing it is just so
I don't know. I think this one's pretty good.
pretty good. Oh no, and I want everyone to know
I think it's the best one of the season.
because last week Tara said to me after we finished because she said last week she thought the episode broke the streak. After we recorded, almost instantly she said, after we talked about it, I don't think I like it as much anymore. Right?
That's true, but I think you're a bit more positive on this one after talking to me.
No.
I think you are. Once you stop recording, you'll be like, Tara, this one wasn't that bad.
No such thing will happen. I will not do that.
Nobody will ever know, except for me.
You won't know shit because I'm not saying that. It's not happening.
I don't believe you. I think you like this one a little bit more. It's not that I don't think it's that bad. I think you are so negative from the entire series that you can't see what's good in this one.
I beg to differ.
Which is also kind of fair.
I beg to differ. I still think the direction's bad. I still think the scene-to-scene dialogue is pretty bad.
Really? I thought the dialogue was okay.
Well, no.
It was. Like, it seemed very natural coming from her.
No. When she was debating with Peele about like the importance of the Twilight Zone and Campfire, that felt like the same people who have been writing these narrations, like a bunch of fluff.
Oh, the narration part, yes, but her conversation seemed totally real.
Still fluff. Still fluff.
I don't know.
Another bit fluff. This is not the best
I
one.
think this one's pretty good.
If I was picking the best one, God, this is like.
I like the comedian.
That was okay. Jojo, the sad part is that I was kind of down in that because it wasn't as good as I was hoping, and I was hoping, okay, maybe it'll get better from here. And the sad part is that it's probably one of the best episodes.
Yeah, I like that one. I like is it 6 Degrees of Freedom, the space one?
Yes.
I like that one, although that one could have used some another like some trimming.
Yeah. Like I feel like even the ones that I kind of like better could use some, they all have caveats. Nightmare at 30,000 Feet. Like I enjoyed.
No, I don't like that one.
I enjoyed a fair bit of that one, but then the ending was like.
The ending just made it so bad. It would have been good if it ended when the plane was going down. But instead it had this additional scene at the end that just makes the whole episode go, what? What was that about?
I want to point out that because Tara wasn't reviewing these yet back in the first half of the season, I want to point out that after that second episode, she did say to me that, oh yeah, it was pretty good. The end of the side. You have went way more negative on that episode in time.
I don't think so. I think I've been pretty honest about how I felt about that episode.
Honesty.
I told you that the ending of the episode.
Oh, you did not. She always hated the ending. I'm not disputing that, but you were definitely more positive overall in the rest of it. I'm not.
Yeah, I am. But but because they had the ending on it, it totally ruins all the rest of it.
I am not doubting your honesty. I am doubting your consistency.
How dare you?
There's a difference.
How dare you challenge me on this show?
I'll challenge you.
Just because I was honest with you after our discussion last week. Now all of my ratings are up for questioning? I don't think so.
You just made it sound like you lied in the review last week. I just wanted to be positive. I'm going to be positive this week. Oh, God. What was the worst episode?
Oh, yeah. The A Traveler, easily.
Yeah, that's not a bad pick. I might have to go with Point of Origin. I think that might outweigh Traveler for me.
That one was just, yeah. It just wasn't a very good Twilight Zone episode. Yeah.
Sure, the sad thing is I'm looking back at like replay the comedian and Nightmare at 30,000 Feet, and I'm like, that's like the stronger end of the season.
The beginning, yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't even that
Yeah,
good.
replay was okay.
Replay. See if replayed like the last like 10, 15 minutes of that were different. It might have been the best episode easily because the opening like 30 minutes of that episode, maybe 25 minutes, whatever it was, is actually really solid.
Yeah, I agree with the cop. All the
Yeah.
cop stuff was pretty good. But yeah, at the end with the when he's trying to get into the school and yeah, that scene was all right. Like I know what it was trying to go for, but I don't think it quite got there. And then I guess at the very end when she's older and she has the camera, and then once it breaks, like the cop shows up again or a cop shows up again. Like I guess it means you can't outrun destiny or something. I don't know. Again, it's a little bit confusing. I know they have these deep themes that they're trying to go for, but unfortunately their execution just kind of muddies it all up.
Yep. Here's a fun question.
Hmm.
What do you think is the highest average rating episode? Like not the number, but what episode do you think is the highest average rating out of the 10 episodes?
Comedian?
It's actually Nightmare at 30,000 feet. It's the
Oh,
only
really?
it's the only thing that's hit a 7. Everything else is lower than that. What do you think the lowest one is?
She's got to be a traveler. That one was not good.
Keep in mind that a lot of crybabies like to go and like review bomb things if they
Oh, okay. It's the one about women then.
yeah. Not all men's at 4.6.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Because
Yeah.
people really hate women. Something about Americans are just like, we just got to keep them down. Man.
So
Can't wait for the comments about that, but goddamn, it's
yeah,
just going to prove my point.
you just opened a can of worms with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um.
Go on. You're just going to dig yourself a deeper hole.
Yeah. Well, that's the sad part is that a lot of these episodes, like, I actually like what the message is. I like that the themes are they're
Yeah, I
playing with,
agree.
but they just don't execute it properly.
Yeah, it's just the writing.
It's just yeah. I wanted to love that episode. I really did, but it
Me too,
just
especially
wasn't there.
when they try to go for just the season as a whole. All the episodes that have the most social commentary, you really want them to succeed on it because you don't want to not like an episode that, tries to deliver a good message or a message you want to get out there so poorly. Because you don't want to hate an episode and then people think that you should hate it because of the wrong reason.
Yeah. No. Um. Yes. There's a cat clawed at the back of my chair.
I can hear it. Yeah. My cat's like going around
Yeah.
messing with my shit too. He wants attention. Cats, man.
I know.
Good thing they're so cute.
Try having 3 of them.
No thanks. I've got one, and he
I
demands a lot of attention.
the smaller where I get up, I had 3 cats like basically meowing at me, and they led me into the kitchen. They went bolting into the kitchen as soon as I walked out the door, and then I had to feed them, and they were little
I never want
carnivores.
more than two pets, and I only have 2 because they entertain each other while I'm at work.
Oh yeah, like I never planned on 3. The third one was kind of just the cat needs a home, and I was too kind to not. But yeah, the 2 is a good number. 2 is a good number.
Yeah.
2 is a great number. Um, so yeah. And, I think one of the worst things is that because it's been so haphazard in its writing, and we can't defend any of it based on quality because the quality is just not there. Is that the
Yeah.
people who do have problems with talking about feminism or talking about racism or talking about the shitty president,
Yeah.
like the people who have those problems could just sit there and yell, "Oh, it's just an SJW show now. It's just SJW this, SJW that. There's no merit here. It's just propaganda." And I agree with pretty much all the messages in this show, but when the quality's not there, it's actually really hard to fight that. And that is clearly not in a sense, but at the same time, it's like if there's no meaningful
If
story,
they're just trying too hard.
yeah, if there's
It
no,
comes off as really try hard, and it's disappointing for the message.
yeah. Yeah, when I'm watching, episodes of this, and I'm thinking to myself, Supergirl on the CW handles this better. And that's a specific dig because I mean I enjoy parts of Supergirl, but sometimes when it wants to be political, it gets really on the nose with what it's doing.
Hmm.
It actually comes off better in that because at least in that it's this like really brutal, honest cheesiness where it's like okay, it's a super character and like they're talking about something and there's like an honesty to it. Whereas in this, it feels like we're trying to be really smart and have these themes in the stories, but we're somehow beating you over the head with a mallet, and which would be fine again, I suppose, if the quality was there, but the quality is just not there. This was a bad
There's
season.
no subtlety in this show. Yeah.
This was a terrible season of TV. And we'll do season two. I'm gonna let you come back and talk about season two.
Yeah, me too. So long as they renew it, I will watch it. And every episode, I will cross my fingers.
It's a nice contrast to
good.
doing the classic show, which for the record, by the way, we are reviewing the original Twilight Zone. We're about 10 or so episodes in, and you can go check it out. It's on the YouTube channel, and go and enjoy it. Which, for the most part, have been vastly more positive.
Oh yeah.
Than this, vastly more positive.
I don't think I've had one that I didn't like yet.
I think there was one I was a little bit lukewarm on, but I mean, I think they're not all went out because we recorded them in advance, but I think we've recorded like 13 episodes so far. There's like one that I was lukewarm
Sounds
on.
right.
Out of 13. Versus this.
Still better than any of the ones from this season.
Whereas this has like 2 that I'm lukewarm on and then 8 that I just hate.
Yeah, I did really like this episode, and I hope that if the writers do want to make Rod Serling proud, that they will actually write some good episodes next season, or just
Fire the writing
I
staff.
don't mind fan service. If they just take old episodes and revamp them for a new audience for today, like that's great. That's the stuff that I've loved from this season. And just do that. Just take old episodes that are still kind of relevant and make them work for today.
They're all relevant. Don't fool yourself. The world's not improved. Honestly, fire the writing staff. Hire new writers.
And directors. You need a different look.
Yeah, now you do. It has this kind of like really high quality but still network TV look to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's something about it that comes off as very amateur.
I think you said the best earlier. You said it's try hard. I think the direction falls into that category. It feels try hard.
Yeah.
And it's rough. It's rough. One of the things we're going to do with the classic Twilight Zone, which we're not going to do with this because it was only 10 episodes, and I mean, this review's been longer because we spent 15, 20 minutes here at the end just talking about the season as a whole, which you can expect from finales. But with the classic Twilight Zone, and I've not really told Tara this yet, but much like we do with Star Trek, before we go into the next season, we'll do like a top, 5 or 10, probably 10 actually, just because there's 36 episodes per season. We could probably do a top 10 and it feels worthwhile, and then like a bottom 3 or whatever. With this, it's just it's only 10 episodes, and I think I'd have a hard time ranking some of this. Like I really would.
Yeah, I think I like the last one and the first one, and all the stuff in the middle is skippable.
Honestly, I can't recommend this show. I mean, we'll keep reviewing it, but I can't recommend this. The reason why this is still being reviewed is because we're doing the classic one, so it's good for comparison. It's got the name, so it's like, we should do it because people still care about opinions on it. But
I want it to be good. I really do.
Season 2, turn it around. Come on, you did it with Discovery. Discovery was much better in season 2. Still not perfect.
I loved Discovery season 1.
Well,
that got way more hate than it deserved.
To be fair, to earn some brownie points with Tara, I do think that Star Trek Discovery season 1 is better than Twilight Zone season 1.
Yeah, a real high bar.
But I mean, there's more of that I liked. Like there was like a good chunk of episodes in the middle of Discovery season 1 that I was getting into, and then it kind of waffled it towards the end again.
I've watched that series 3 or 4 times now, and I love that season. I think it's great.
Oh my god! You're a
It is. I think it's great. I think if you rewatched it, you would like it better. But I know you won't because you
I
don't need to.
might.
You have too much on your plate.
I might someday. I might do a rewatch when the occasion calls for it.
Yeah.
But yeah. So maybe all I meant was the quality can go up in season 2, because would you agree that the quality went up in season 2 as Discovery?
No.
No.
Genuinely no.
You think it went down?
Yes. No, I think it stayed about the same. I really didn't like the finale.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, I had some qualms about the finale. I had some things I liked. I had some qualms.
I mean, I can tell you why, but this isn't a Discovery.
Oh yeah,
review
you can
show.
tell me after we wrap up. I'm curious now. Everyone in the comments, no, talk about Star Trek. We want to hear Star Trek talk. You can face Star Trek. Me and Connor talk about Star Trek like all the time.
That's a you and Connor thing.
Yes.
I'm
Tara's
just on the sidelines.
yeah. Tara's insistent in not shoehorning her way into any Trek because she feels bad.
No. I'm too much of an expert. It would be weird having me there.
We'll just have to do like a one-time marathon Trek discussion at some point.
Sure.
We should
When you
do
guys are done with Enterprise, I'll be
all the
happy
way.
to guess.
I was thinking at the end of each show, not the end of like all of it.
10 years from now, when you guys are done with Enterprise. Yeah.
All right, Tara, you can do most of the outro stuff. Plug and promote and tell what they can do. Yeah, everything.
Oh, okay.
Everything. I'm not even going to do the start of it. You can do the whole thing. You've done 13 episodes of classic Twilight Zone. You've done 10 episodes of it. Well, you've not done 10. You've done 5 of this, and you've done a bunch of Ace. You're prepared to do almost the entire outro on your own. So
Okay, but I better see Connor or Matt or the other guy.
Tim
do one of these outros. Otherwise, I'm going to take this very personally.
Okay.
All right, fine. Well, that's been our review of the new Twilight Zone. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please leave your thoughts below in the comments. We'd love to hear them. And if you like this content and you like what we do, you can go to our Patreon to support us. It's patreon.com/MidleFuzzTV. And you can donate as low as $1 per month. And with that dollar, you get bonus episodes of our show, including The Ace, which has been mentioned. The Atomic Cinema Experiment is our science fiction show where we review classic and new films. You get a bonus episode every month, and you get episodes a week early if you donate. And you also get content for additional shows on MidleFuzz TV. If you like classic science fiction, you can watch our reviews of the Twilight Zone classic series if you want to see what we like in a Twilight Zone episode. But yeah, that has been us. You can follow on Twitter, which is an address I don't know, but it's on the screen. I don't use Twitter.
It's literally on the screen right now. @mail_fuzz. I was actually going to compliment you because you said the Patreon address without looking at the screen because it wasn't even up when you said it.
I've got it memorized.
Because I've caught Tara doing that before when she's doing that the Patreon plug. I've caught
You
it.
see me look down.
Yeah. I'm like, how does she keep timing it so well so that it's exactly when? Because it alternates between the Twitter and the Patreon at the bottom, and she always seems to time it so well. It's the Patreon just when she needs to say it. Genius.
I'm a pro.
Oh dear. Do you want to do the
Did I
fail a
miss
little bit?
anything?
No, you did everything. That was everything. Do you want to do the fail a little bit? Do you want to do the?
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Do you know what you're saying?
What?
Do you know what you're saying?
No. Something about the Twilight Zone.
All right. Repeat after me. Right.
Keep watching TV in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, that'll do.